And we're live.
And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Astro Imaging channel. Hope you had a nice, was it a holiday? No, I guess it wasn't a holiday. Well, I hope you had a nice couple of weeks. And the weather has kind of cleared up. It's been kind of icky. So for all of you that have cloudy skies, rain, sleet, or snow, we'll play you a little. Okay, that's it. Sorry. Tonight we have Dan Mooney. I always get that name wrong, Dan Moomey, who is going to give us some kind of basics from PixInsight. We can all use those basics because I think a lot of times when we process our images, we kind of jump ahead and we find that we are forgetting some of the fundamentals. So we're going to go over that. And we've known Dan for a little bit. He is most famous for photobombing a photograph of the eclipse when we all were down in Ohio. We still have that picture frame. Great picture. Oh yeah, you and your mom photobombed my son-in-law's picture. But it turned out very nice. But we digress. So tonight Dan's going to talk to us about some fundamentals of PixInsight. And we always kind of take a couple of moments to go over the calendar. I'm not going to bring it up on the screen, but just to say, on the 29th, remember we skip a week. We have every other week or twice a month. Frank Merrick, who we all know as SETI Astro, is going to talk about his SAS Pro, the SETI Astro Pro Suite. Always worthwhile. 2 weeks, or the week after, we have no show because it's Easter. And on the 19th of April, we have Daniel Stern, narrowband processing with PixInsight scripts. There have been a lot of new PixInsight scripts, so that's certainly going to be a worthwhile show to learn a little bit about. Then we have a couple of open dates on the 26th of April and the 3rd of May. So we always ask someone out there, you have some ideas for a show or an ideas about processing, just go to the astroimagingchannel.org, go to the let's see, what is the contact list, and write us a little note. Someone will get in contact with you, and you'll be able to have your little special thing on the Astro Imaging channel. After those 2 open dates, which we hope to fill, we have John Hayes to be announced. His to be announced are better than most everyone else's actual programs. So always tune in to John. He gives incredible presentations. I think that's all we have to do for covering the calendar. And I think after that, let's see, we have a nice little population on YouTube. Dan, are you ready?
Yeah, ready as I'll ever be.
Oh, ready as I'll ever be. Okay, we turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thanks for the introduction. And a big thanks to the moderators for inviting me to be back on the show. It's always good to be back, and it's always fun to present here. So as, and in case you're wondering, no, you don't have to adjust your screen. The lower half of my face is quite red from skiing in the 70-degree heat on the top of the Rocky Mountains. And there are 5 inches of snow on the ground this morning, and it's 30 degrees. So yeah, welcome to Colorado in March. So as regular viewers of the show know, this channel hosts a lot of great content from several of the leading members of the astrophotography community, from photographers themselves and software developers to high-profile hardware reviewers, and the list goes on. I'm not any of those, but just a guy with some glass and a dream. Yet this is my 3rd time on. So for anyone out there who might not be sure if you have something to contribute, I think you do. Yeah, there's something here for everybody, and there's always room for more. So like Eric was saying, I encourage everybody to you know, offer up what you may have. I was talking with Molly, and she asked me a couple weeks ago if I could come on and go through a fundamentals of PixInsight processing. So with that, here's my slide deck I put together for this. This is only going to be slides for a few minutes here. So tonight we're going to discuss fundamentals of photo processing flows, which use one-shot color data from a common imaging setup. The discussion will cover interface basics and the PixInsight program itself, the processing flow steps, including master calibration frame creation, initial calibration of the images, their alignment, and then there's a script called weighted batch preprocessor that I have come to trust and use. And we'll walk through that really quickly. It doesn't actually happen really quickly. We're going to do like a Rachel Ray, dough goes in the oven, buns come out of the oven. And then go quickly through the image integration, post-processing steps as time allows. The images that we're going to be working with were taken from this rig, which resides in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It is a Celestron EdgeHD 8-inch Schmidt Cassegrain with an f7 reducer. For the camera, it is a ZWO 2600 color, and on top of a trusty old Atlas EQG mount, and that is the same mount as the Skywatcher EQ6 for anyone that may not know that. And this thing is a workhorse. It's a tank. I picked it up on Cloudy Nights classifieds for $500 5 years ago, and it performs incredibly well. Typically guides for an RMS around 0.6 arc seconds. And in addition, I guide with an off-axis guider there. You can see it's just a good old trusty Lodestar camera. And there's a 5-position 2-inch filter wheel, which might seem a bit strange for a one-shot color camera. And in that filter wheel, you can see off on the left there, these are the filters I have in there, which include a UV IR cut filter, an Optolong L Pro light pollution filter, an Optolong L Extreme, which is a dual band H alpha 03 filter, an Antlia S2 H beta filter, and then an IDAS NBZ filter that I had just laying around, and I felt like populating the 5th thing, but I never used the NBZ filter. I found the L Pro systemically outperforms it. So these filters give me the ability to take RGB images either with or without light pollution reduction, and H alpha or S2 with the red channel pixels, as well as O oxygen or H beta with the green and blue channels using the L Extreme and the Antlia S2H beta filters respectively. So what that allows me to do is to isolate the hydrogen from the oxygen and the sulfur from the hydrogen beta, and then that can be used to combine, after you separate the color channels, back into a Hubble palette image with a one-shot color camera. I will not be discussing the details of that tonight, but maybe perhaps another night I can come back on and discuss those processing techniques. Tonight we'll be using a stack of about 200 RGB subframes taken with the L Pro light pollution reduction filter. And the subframes are 500 seconds, so 5-minute exposures taken from, like I said, suburban / rural transition area of Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's a Bortle 4 or 5 for those of you that keep track of that. And with that, I guess we'll move on. There are a couple assumptions that I want to go over here tonight for the listeners. I'm making the assumption that the audience knows how to capture images using a telescope, including calibration, frames, and flats and darks. Personally, I use Nina for capturing. Has a built-in tool called Flat Wizard. I just use that. Also have a sequence built for taking darks, which I do every year to 2 years. I found that with the new generation of Sony sensors, you saw before, I'm using the 2600 MC from ZWO, and all the vendors have variants using that particular sensor. What that sensor is a Sony IMX571. That sensor tech is about 5 years old, but it's current generation. And you'll also probably, no doubt, have heard of the 533 or the QHY 600. All of these use variants of the same Sony 3.76 micron pixel, and the one we're going to be working with is the APS-C sized. That's the IMX 571, like I said. There are also, if you're cool enough to own medium format, there are two variants of medium format with this pixel tech. One is a 102 megapixel IMX461, and the other is a whopping 151 megapixel IMX411. But again, all of those use the exact same pixel tech down from the 533 all the way up to that $15,000 151 megapixel camera. And they are exceedingly good at controlling noise. And I'm going into this tech. I could talk all day about sensor technology. But what I'm trying to get across is that because it is so clean, this really has changed the game in the last 5 years. If you go back up 7 years or 10 years back, the images, the amount of effort you have to put in to get a good quality image out is very different today than it was then. I am not advocating for skipping any steps with regard to calibration with darks and flats, but for reference, this is an image I took of the Wizard Nebula in mono, so LRGB SHO, with my telescope in my backyard using a QHY 533 camera in inner city Denver, so I'm Bortle 8-9, and all the subframes to make that image were not calibrated. So there are no biases, darks, or flats applied to that image. It can be done, it shouldn't be done. Just want to offer that this is how good the sensor tech is now. Okay, so with that, again, enough about hardware. Could fill in a whole hour talking about sensor tech. Another assumption I want to talk about is assuming that the listeners are somewhat familiar with the PixInsight software and understands basics of how to use the interface you see here, how to go through the opening processes here, and then the icon usage. So being able to load process icons, so all these icons that you see on the desktop, save them off and load them up. And then the interfaces have these little icons at the bottom, so the triangle, be able to drag that off to make a new icon. Applying a process, actually executing the steps, whether you do that for a single thing or globally. And then there's the real-time preview button. So all of these things I'm assuming people are aware of and know how to use. And then there's the reset button over here. And up here we've got the auto stretch function, AAK, the nuke button, and then being able to apply masks. All of these things are truly fundamental to be able to use PixInsight, and you'll see me use several of these things throughout here. And then also assuming that the listener knows how to manage and update the repositories, such as Graxpert, SETI Astro, Cosmic Photons, and RC Astro. So here, just showing you how to pull that up and update them, and then go in and look for the updates, and then goes through the process of updating itself. And there's plenty of online tutorials that show you how to, and plenty, no shortage of repositories out there, and plenty of TAIC talks about several of these repositories. So with that, we'll move on to the next slide. And this is an overview. Here's a before, during, and after of what we'll get through here shortly. And I was going to do Stefan's Quintet as the example tonight. That was the title slide here, but then went and processed M94, the Croc's Eye Galaxy, and thought this would be a better example that provided a few other opportunities to show more tools, again, if we have time to get to them. And so without further ado, let's transition over to PixInsight. And we're going to start off with the first parts of the calibration frames. So we've got a whole bunch of icons here. Don't be too intimidated by them. This sigma, the big E here, you can go here and click processes and go over to image integration and open it up, or you can save it off and open it from here. So we would want to go in and do dark stacking first. So we would take our raw dark images. So I've got all my files saved off here in the Croc's Eye Galaxy folder. Go into the raw darks. I'm going to grab some of these dark you usually grab them all, but I'm just going to save a second here. Grab a few of them, and then what we're going to do is we're going to combine them in an average. We're not going to set any normalization. We don't care about the weights, and then we're just going to generate the integrated image. The rejection algorithm will be linear fit clipping with no normalization, and then we will click the Apply Global button, and it will go through the process of taking all of these and averaging each pixel times each one of these images, and then it will bring back the averaged image of all of them. And so we'll do this for darks, and we'll do this for the flats. If you're still using older charge couple device technology, you're probably already well aware of the need to do biases. Biases can also be applied for CMOS, although I have personally not found any tangible benefit for the overhead of using biases with the current Sony aforementioned chips. And so this is about how long it takes. Should be back any second. Yep, there we go. All right. And what you can get back is the pixels that it rejected. And again, I'm going to press the nuke button and stretch it. And then that's the highs, and we'll skip past that. Okay, so here is the actual dark image. It should be dark, right? Pretty dark. So that'll be our master, and we can save that off as our master dark. And I'm in the wrong drive. I have a lot of drives. There it is. Crocs-Eye Galaxy, and then we'll just save that as a pre-cal, master dark. And then I want to save this as an XISF. That is the native PixInsight file format, XISF. We do not want to save in JPEG. We want to save in XISF. And look at that. I already saved it. So I'm not actually going to save it, but I would just hit save. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the flats, except I have slightly different settings. I'm not going to go through and do an integration, but you're going to average again. This time, key, normalization will be a multiplicative. Weights, don't care, again. And then pretty much everything else is the same, except the rejection algorithm is going to be no rejection, accept all of them, and then go ahead and run it. You'll get back your flat. You're going to save that master flat off, just like you did the dark. And now we are going to move on to the next step, which is going to be our weighted batch pre-processing calibration. So here I have a script called, actually, we're going to back up a step. So we're not going to go to weighted batch preprocessors yet. There is a little note I have here called start with blink. So we've created our master calibration files. These are our light files. So you'll open up, right? You go wherever you have saved your actual pictures of the thing you want to make a pretty image of. And you're going to open up the blink process. There's no icon for that. You have to go to process and blink, open up blink. You may not be able to read the words here, but trust me, that is the one. It looks like a movie clacker. I think that's the technical term for it. So you'll open up all the images here, and then you can blink through them by pressing the play button, and it will just play automatically. Or you can press the down arrow, or press and hold the down arrow, and you'll go through and find the ones you like or don't like. Let's say for whatever reason, there's nothing particularly wrong with this image, but just to demonstrate, I don't like this image in my stack. I don't want it. Maybe it's cloudy, or it's streaked, or it's not the right target. You know, any manner of things of several natures could go wrong with a given image. So I'm going to go over here and say move selected files to new location. And then I have a trash folder, and I just drop it in the trash, say select folder, and boom, that image is no longer in the lights folder. And then you can close that selected image and continue blinking. Once you've gone through all that and you're like, okay, I'm happy with all the images in here, then we go on to the next step. And that is when we open up weighted batch preprocessor. This is a script. And to get to it, you can go to script, and there are a whole lot of scripts. I have a whole lot of repositories in here. Molly, help me out. Remind me where this one lives.
Which one? Sorry.
Weighted batch preprocessing. That one's in batch processing.
Batch
Thank you for
processing.
your help. So weighted batch preprocessing can be found right here in scripts, batch processing, weighted batch preprocessor. And then you can save that off to your desktop with this little triangle icon, open it up. And what we're going to find there it is this little button called directory. So I'm going to click that. And then I'm going to go to where my images are. And that's going to be the Nebulab drive, Rockeye Galaxy, pre-calibrated images. So in there I have my lights, I have my master dark, and I have my master flat. So I'm going to select that folder and it will pre-populate my darks, flats, and lights. There's also a tab for biases. So if you have master biases, you do the same thing you do for darks and flats here. And it's going to load all of those images in, which is what's going on all this green text here. Almost there. All right. So now I've got all our images. And in here, what you can do is a lot of things. You can do linear defect correction. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do much of this, but just so you're aware what's in there, you can do image registration. So that's going to be taking and aligning those images. And then you can normalize the images. We're not going to do that. And you can even integrate your images in here. You can automatically integrate your images. We're not going to do that. It works just fine. So if you want, you can just do that, and you're going to get a fine result. But I want to go through a few more details on this. And then over here, we are selecting these are our darks. And this is our flat image. And these, we have 172 300-second L-Pro filters, right? Just like we talked about. And what I need to do is say, hey, I want to apply this dark, and I want to apply this flat. And now you can see I have linked the dark and the flat. There are other ways to do this, and you can do some other fancy automatic association things. I've got a script that does that I'm not going to get into, but there are a lot of ways to get into some detailed automation of this. But at the basic level, you just go and apply the darks and the flats for a given set of lights. If I had separate color channels or different exposure times or different filters, I would have different rows for the lights, and you would have to apply the darks and the flats for each row. Okay, now the next step is we're going to look at the post calibration. And here's a little thing called Drizzle. I like to enable Drizzle at a scale of 2. So instead of having a 4,000 by 6,000 image, it is going to interpolate and quadruple your total pixels. And instead of being 4,000 by 6,000, it's going to create an 8,000 by 12,000 pixel image. Now that is a very large image file, but you're going to get some subsampled resolution gains in doing that. If you have the storage space, and it also allows you to crop down to have a nice high resolution image. I always drizzle, but for the sake of expedience today, the data we're going to be working with is not drizzled. Okay, and then on the back end, what it's going to do, it's going to calibrate, right? It's going to do those flat corrections in the dark. So it's going to subtract the value of the dark out of the light images, and then it's going to divide out the flat. So if you have corners that are kind of vignetted or donuts of dust spots, then it will divide that image by the flat, and it will normalize that darkness to be the same brightness. And so that's what it's doing in calibration. And then debayering, it's going in, you get the red, green, blue pixels, but the computer doesn't know what pixel is red, green, or blue. It just has a brightness level, and the different pixels allow different amounts of the bandwidth of light. So the green is going to have a wider band than the blue and the red by a little bit, and then also they'll have different quantum efficiencies. So the green pixels will typically look slightly brighter, and also doesn't help that the light pollution is also kind of in that yellow-green channel. So what'll happen if you just pull up a black and white image, or if you just open an image without having debayed it, it'll look like a waffle pattern. And then if you go in and debayer it correctly, so you know, and you can look up online with the manufacturer what the actual debayer pattern is, and then you can pull that out, and it'll come back as a color image, but it's probably going to look pretty green, and you'll see that, and we'll deal with that. So after it does the debayering, it's going to do that to every single image, all 172 of them, and then it's going to measure them, and then it's going to register them. And right now it's not showing registration because I didn't do one of the buttons, which is
Daniel?
fast registration. Yes, sir.
We've got some a question coming up, and
Sure.
I may have missed this. I've been having computer difficulties and been in and out of the room. But Glenn Mitchell wants to know about why you're not using flat calibration frames. You know, the sensor improvements and noise do not eliminate the flat field artifacts. And again, I may have missed something, but could you go after that again? Why are you not advocating flat calibration frames?
I am advocating for flat calibrations.
Okay.
So if there was any confusion about that, perhaps that confusion was when I was talking about biases, and I'm not using biases. Biases are very different.
I think the point he was making is that you said you can get away without using darks and flats these days because of the good cameras, but if you have dust bunnies and stuff, you still need flats, and if you use flats, you have to use darks.
Yes. So I said it quickly. I qualified that I do not advocate for not applying calibration frames. That is to say, I advocate for calibration frames. This slide that I was showing, where I was talking about that the subframes were uncalibrated, was just as an example to demonstrate how good the sensor technology is. This is even without darks and flats applied, although I was very meticulous to make sure I didn't have any dust bunnies in order to be able to show how good this sensor technology is, even in an optimal configuration. But again, that is not going to be normal. That was just an example. So you are going to want to apply flats and darks, and then we're going to go through the weighted batch preprocessor here, and we're going to go ahead and run it. Okay, and after we get the weighted batch preprocessor done, then we are going to go into a process called Subframe Selector. Did that answer the question before I go too much further? Or if that was confusing at all. All right, and we're going to move on because it's silent. Okay, so now we are in something called Subframe Selector, and we're going to go into the Proxi Galaxy weighted batch preprocessor output, and here it has our registered frame. So this is where you will I didn't show you. You're going to specify where you want the weighted batch preprocessor output to go, and it'll create a weighted batch preprocessor folder. And in there, you're going to have registered. You're going to click on the registered, and we're just going to measure a few images here. And then if you have drizzled, you're also going to want to add your drizzle files. So you'll click that, and it'll open up the drizzle files. You'll add those drizzle files also, right? And then we are going to specify where we want to put these images, and I have another folder called ACC for accepted, and then if you have color channels, so here we'll just say L Pro, right? I want to add it there, and we are going to measure the subframes. Ready to go. This will take maybe 30 seconds or so. When that's done, it'll come back with some graphs, and what we're going to do is we're going to pick out some of the images. Now we've blinked through and we've said, okay, I like these images, I don't like these images, and this is the reason I don't integrate in weighted batch preprocessor, because sometimes some of these images may come back, and I don't have a lot of data points to show you here because I wanted to save some time. But here, let's say, oh, well, hey, that median is way too high, for example, right? I can say, no, don't use that image, and maybe don't use this one either. Right, and now I'm accepting 4 out of the 6 example images. If I want to see what it looks like, I can just double click the picture icon. It'll open up the actual image. And then I can auto stretch it and inspect it and say, hey, remember I said it was going to be green? Here you go. So I can look and zoom in and see what I think about this image, and then either decide whether I want to keep it or not. All right. After I've done that, that was just measuring the subframes, right? Just making all these graphs, and I can measure it by how bright it is, or I can measure the full width half max. In other words, how many pixels across is a star before its brightness is half of what it is at its brightest point in the center. And that is measured in pixels. So this particular image has an average star size of 3.7 pixels across before it's half as bright. And maybe, you know, sometimes you'll have some out of focus images and that number may be very large. So you might want to cut the ones there. And then SNR is signal to noise ratio, right? That background brightness compared to the actual image of the stars and maybe the bright nebula you're trying to look at. It'll do a ratio of how bright is the subject of interest versus the background darkness, and it'll give you a number. So it's a little more complicated than that, but that's just the general idea. Eccentricity, this is how out of round are your stars. So you're looking for a number below 0.6-ish, but if you're not sure, and it's okay, just again, go in and look at the image, and if it looks round to your eye, it will always look round to your eye. So there you go. I'd say that looks pretty round. I'm going to accept that. Now, bigger stars are going to appear perhaps a little rounder than the dimmer stars, because the dimmer stars have a smaller radius. So you also want to check some of the smaller dimmer stars for roundness. All right, perhaps that looks slightly more elliptical, but I'm good with it. We're going to keep it. All right, so that's the type of stuff you're going to look for in the measured subframe selector. And then when you're happy with the ones you've chosen and the ones you've cut with the little red X's, then you're going to switch from measure subframe to output subframe. And you're going to output it to the directory you just gave it. And then you're going to click the circle button, and it's going to write those files to that directory, and that step is complete.
Dan, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So we have eccentricity, we have full width half max, SNR. If you start eliminating subframes on all those parameters, you might not have much left. So if you have to pick one parameter in order to judge which subframes to keep, what would you do? Or do you look at all three and eliminate them if any one falls out?
You can set these thresholds a lot of different ways. I didn't want to actually cut that. I'm just going to measure these subframes again real quick, and I'll show you one more.
I guess my question is, what is your go-to measurement on the subframe selector?
I am usually going to look for full width half max and eccentricity. If I'm going to pick two, it's going to be those two. Yeah, full width half max and eccentricity. This stars also shows you the number of stars, so this can indicate whether you have a lot of clouds in an image. So they each have different uses, but yeah, full width half max and eccentricity. And if you know like a heuristic that, hey, I am always happy with my images if the full width half max is less than 0.6, you can type in full width half max. So it has to match exactly what types here. Full width half max, less than 0.6. If you also want to specify and your threshold for eccentricity, I can say eccentricity less than 0.6, right? I'm sorry, I had these numbers backwards. Eccentricity is typically good below 0.6. Full width half max depends on the pixel scale of your images. For this system, it's right around 5. But if you have like a wide field astrograph and larger pixels, your full width half max is probably going to be lower than that. So it just depends on your imaging. So just get an idea for what's good, and then you can set these defaults and then store that away as its own process. And then when you open that up, it will have, well, I guess not. All right. Usually I would expect that would come back with those same defaults. There is also another equation here in the weighting factors. I am just going to put this out here, and anyone who is interested can hit pause on the video here and type out that equation. And that is generally a pretty good equation for the weighting factors. And I did not make that up. I got that from Molly, and Molly got that from the internet, and probably
got that from Light Vortex Astronomy circa 2017.
Light Vortex Astronomy. Yeah. So,
So that was my next question, Dan.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Daniel, before we go on, we did have a question from Stephen Grunfeld wants to know how you determine the level of drizzle.
So I generally use a level 2 drizzle, just because anything past that, you really run into law of diminishing returns. You're already kind of pushing law of diminishing returns drizzling at all, but it also really depends on your pixel scale. So I'm using a pixel scale of about a half arc second. So I'm already pushing well past the atmospheric sampling. If you're at something like 4 arc seconds, you might be able to drizzle a 3x3. So that's going to increase your file size by a factor of 9 and the number of pixels by a factor of 9. Going to 4x4 would be a factor of 16. And so it gets pretty big, right, as a square function of the drizzle number. So if you're going to drizzle, generally drizzle at 2.
Dan, you want to comment on the benefits or lack of benefits of drizzling based on oversampling and undersampling?
Yeah, so conventional wisdom would say, well, the atmosphere is around a 2 arc second atmospheric scintillation, and so if your pixel scale is more than that, as in like lower resolution, so it's 4 arc seconds or so, then if you go to 2x2, now you're at that 2 arc second, same as the atmosphere. But empirically, I've found that you can really push well beyond that and get usable resolution. I am drizzling 0.5 arc second images down to 0.25 arc second images, and seeing noticeable results. If I make the same image without drizzling and same image with drizzling, I just prefer the image that's drizzled. I get more resolution. So there's the conventional wisdom, if you ascribe to Nyquist's theory, your sampling should be 2 times the spatial resolution you want to achieve. Then perhaps 1 arc second might be your fancy, but I found you can do better than even that. So I don't know if that exactly answers the question, Eric, but I'm going to move on because we've got 12 minutes left, and we have not even started imaging, doing the integration yet. But we have done everything we need so far in order to get to integration. There is one other thing I want to talk about. Oh, go ahead.
No, I said we're good. Please move on.
Oh, okay. Sorry, there was I had a comment I had in my mind I wanted to bring up. Oh, sorry. Okay, so we will move on to the integration. So now we're going to open up the image integration, and I've got my accepted images saved off. So I'm just going to grab them all, but in this case, I'm just going to grab a few. And again, if you have drizzle files, you will add the drizzle files. They will automatically populate. I don't have a set of drizzle files in this directory. And then here we're going to be average combination. Normalization is going to be additive. The weights are going to be the FITS keyword. FITS is the flexible image transport system. This is a header in the front of the file before all the image information in FITS images. So if you're in Nina, you can save the images off as .fits, and you can add these keywords. SS weight is the keyword that was added from our subframe selector process. When we measured the subframes, and we measured the weightings, it added this keyword. That's the other reason we do the subframe selector, so that we can apply these weightings. And then you can hit pause here and look at all of these other settings. Linear fit clipping if you have more than about 20, and Windsorized Sigma clipping if you don't have very many images. And then from there, go ahead and apply global, and we will do the integration and pull back the, we'll get the return integrated image. Here we go. We're integrating 4,175 rows. Good. Now we're doing green. Now we're doing blue. And then it'll come back with the full color image. And there you go. And it's very, very green, like we talked about. So here we have a single subframe, and here we have the fully integrated stack of all of those images. We're not going to go through and take the time to do it. You're just going to see the buns coming out of the oven now. So here you go. And you'll notice a couple things. This is a lot, the total integrated image is a lot less noisy, right? And this was not a very good, yeah, they had some weird data there, but don't worry. This bun will go back in the oven in a moment. So we've got our integration. Now I want to get rid of all this green, and there are a couple ways you can do that. The way I do it is Graxpert, and this is one of those repositories. And so hit pause and check these settings if you want, and we're just going to hit the go button. And there is an image preview on this, so if you want, you can change the settings and click image preview and see what it looks like. And here you go. So now we've taken the green out. Another way you can do this is something called dynamic background extraction. Here we can say, hey, I just want you to sample the background. And there you go. And you can say how many samples. I want more samples, whatever. And then you go, and it will bring back, hey, here's what I subtracted, and here's the image after subtraction. So this is what it took out, and this is what's left over. And they look pretty similar, right? The discerning eye might notice that the coloration is slightly different. That's how you're going to do that background subtraction. Once you've got the background subtraction done, then we're going to move on to the next step. Now you're going to notice down on the bottom here, we've got a line here. Some of the images are not in the exact same place as the other images, right? The camera may move throughout the night as it's guiding and then reacquiring. Might have a slightly different registration. And so what we'll probably want to do here is crop that out. And you might want to crop that out before you apply that background subtraction, so it doesn't try to apply a different amount of background. All right, so we'll just go ahead and do that crop. And then there you go. All right, so, okay, once we've done the crop and we've done the background subtraction in that order, then you're going to solve the image. So what that means is I need to know, where am I looking in the sky? Any 3 stars makes a triangle of unique angles, right? And if I can take enough of these triangles, I can uniquely identify, and also based on their relative brightnesses to each other, I can uniquely identify where this pixel is in right ascension, declination, celestial, spherical coordinates. And you have to do all the math by hand. That's a lie. Oops. You just go to plate solve. There's a script. And it's going to pull in the right ascension and declination from the image. And then you're going to click OK and run it. If it fails, you can go over and run blind plate solver 2000. And what this does, if you have an astrometry.net key, which is free to get, then you can give it the image, and you can run the plate solve. It takes about 30 seconds. It'll come back with the image, plate solved. Okay. Once we've got the plate solved, or we know what the coordinates are, then what we're going to do is we are going to run, actually going to move this to my other workspace, where I am going to, yes, you can have multiple desktops, right? So these little icons down the bottom lighted. So this is another setup that I have. I'm going to run. This is an average spiral galaxy spectrometric color calibration. It is going to measure the color of the stars. Now that I have solved the image, I know where this is in the sky. And you can go into a star database and say, I know at this particular pixel is this right ascension declination, so that star is Hipparchus number whatever, 26495, making up the number. Once I've got that figured out, I can go in and say, okay, if this whole image is taken with a Sony IMX 411, 455, 461, 533, 571. Again, they're all the same pixel tech, and PixInsight knows that. So you can just apply, hey, if I've got one of these cameras and I'm using RGB color, so it's a Sony color sensor. If you're using narrowband, or if you have a Canon DSLR or Johnson Cousin filters or Nikon DSLR, they're all different. The little lenses on top of each pixel have a specific unique color response, and so that's all measured in here. Just figure out what camera you're using. We're using a Sony color camera, right? The 571, and then I've got all this applied. It's an average spiral galaxy with that camera. Hit go, and what it's going to do is it is going to measure all of the stars in the image, and it is going to say, based on the spectral type of that star from publicly available astronomy databases, it should be this color. But in your image, the white balance shows it as some other color. It is then going to plot what the image's red-green ratio to the catalog red-green ratio is, and is going to try to fit a intercept using a Gaussian least squares fit, and then it will recolor the image. So, looked like this before, kind of greenish, and it looks like this after. This is closer, it's not pretty much exactly right on the real to the eye color of this particular galaxy, right? Based on the color of all the stars around it. All right, so that's a neat little trick. We're going to move that back over to the other workspace. And now I'm going to get into something that's a little bit more commercial, right? So the software is not free, and it comes with a whole bunch of packages, but there are other add-on packages, and there are a lot of techniques you can use that we're not going to have the time to get into on how to improve things like sharpness and noise reduction. And I have a whole lot of them here, like the multiscale linear transform denoise settings, and then there's sharpening settings. But really, what a lot of people are starting to gravitate towards are the RC Astro tools, and these are AI generated, and you basically just click go. And you can do GPU acceleration for some of these things as well. Well, it takes maybe a minute here, so just bear with me. And while this is going, I'll offer a few other thoughts. I guess maybe just to talk about like where I find joy in the hobby is the growth and improvement. I very much like the gear and tinkering. You know, this is a hobby and troubleshooting when it comes to actually trying to take the images. And I got into it because I'm a hardware nut. Love playing with the gear. And full disclosure, perhaps a hot take, the photo pre-processing steps are a bit of a chore for me and a barrier to processing. But with a batch preprocessor and these other automated techniques that have implemented have made this a lot more palatable. And once I have the integrated image that I'm happy with, I've found a lot of joy in learning new processing techniques and experimenting or trying different things to learn what does and what doesn't work. And then when you find something that works, write it down. Actually, I have this up over here on the screen. So I have this Word doc that I call PixInsight Processing One-Shot Color, and you can just write down what works and save it so that you could just go through these steps every time reliably. This is a very powerful tool that I've put together. It's like 17 pages. I used to have a 34-page version of it, but I had to format my computer, and we're not going to talk about that painful memory. All right, so this has come back as complete. It took 53 seconds, which is probably about how much time I've got left on this talk before you pull the hook. Okay, undo real quick, Control Z, like many other things in the computer world. And this is before, and Control Y is redo. After. Before, after. Like magic.
Hey, Dan,
Yes, sir.
we never pull the hook, so relax, take your time. You got plenty of time.
Shouldn't have said that. All right, so now what we're going to go through is click the noise exterminator tool. Again, there are other tools that do noise. We're just going to use for this purpose of this demo. And my settings, I keep there's a setting threshold between high frequency and low frequency, and you can set how many pixels is the threshold between high and low frequency. And what I mean by that is as you zoom way into the pixel space, how many pixels across is it going to register? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to look for large discontinuities. It's AI, so it's not simple. Vastly oversimplifying it, but it's going to go through and look for structures that are on the order of 5 pixels in size, and then that will apply the denoise settings for brightness and color for the low frequency, which are things bigger than 5 pixels, and then for high frequency, it's going to be things that are smaller than 5 pixels. I'm setting my denoise high frequency for brightness or luminance to 0.9, for color 0.8, low frequency larger noise structures for brightness at 0.7 and color for 0.6, and you can mess around with these however you want. As far as picking different settings, maybe a piece of advice for new and less experienced users who might be intimidated by all the settings options in so many of the tools. It's really, the defaults are generally good. When in doubt, I've found that trusting the defaults nets good results. As a general heuristic, that's not to say you can't do better. You can certainly do better, but if you're not sure what a process is going to do, start with the default settings and try moving the sliders around and try new things. And like I said, figure out what works and what you like and what you don't like, and build an intuition for what a given setting does at different levels to an image. And the tooltips and preview windows can be very helpful for that, right? So you can just hover over some of these things, and I'll tell you what they do. And of course, I am saying this while there isn't a tooltip available, but I'll show you another one. And then you can click on the actual values here if you want to go into the code. And then there's documentation, and some of this, that one doesn't have documentation, but other ones have documentation. There you go. So you can go, of course, pixel method. Okay. So you can go in and some of these have documentation. You can read the actual background and the algorithm if you want to get deep into it. I typically, honestly, don't. So here we're going to run the noise exterminator, and we're zoomed way in, but you'll see kind of what this does to the noise structure at the very small pixel scale level. And then if ever you want to just kill a process, you can just kill the process by hitting the pause abort button. And we're just going to pull the button out of the oven. Not that one. Boom, done. Different button. So that one. Okay, well, we're going to move on. You're going to run denoise, and it gets a lot better.
What were you looking for?
I was trying to find the image that I had already. I was going to pull the bun out of the oven that already has blur exterminator and noise exterminator applied, but I am struggling to find that right now, so we're just going to do it live.
While that runs, Get Outside with Miguel wants to know if your workflow is shareable. I think by that he means your process icons.
Absolutely, yes. I was actually thinking about offering that in the comments.
What you can do is, if you send it to me, I'll post it on our Google Drive, and I can put the link into the video description.
Perfect. Okay, great. Okay, so here you go. Now we've seen what it does to the noise structure. Zoom in. That's mouse wheel down, not up. Okay, so undo, Control Z. There you go. That's the noise structure before applying noise exterminator and after. Before and after. And when you zoom out, you can't really tell much of a difference. Before, actually, no, you can. You can on my screen. It probably isn't coming across the webcast. All right, so now that we've done blur exterminator and noise exterminator, we're gonna pretend I've done blur exterminator because I closed and reopened the image. Now we're going to honestly, like at this point, you have an image, right? Is it going to win an APOD? No, but it's a respectable result. One of the other things I like to do, there's one of my favorite scripts, and Molly is rolling her eyes right now, is game.
I am indeed rolling my eyes.
Actually, before we do game, we skipped a very critical step because I didn't scroll down yet. Yep. Okay. There we go. What's the next step, everybody? Stretch. Yes, we've been auto stretching this thing the whole time, right? Okay, so there are a lot of stretching tools. We just had a talk last month about a lot of great stretching tools. What I have gravitated towards is generalized hyperbolic stretch. There's a lot of fine control with that, and Molly has a great video on her YouTube channel about how to use generalized hyperbolic stretch. Check that out. If you want a really good auto I win button, the multiscale adaptive stretch is one I have just been using a lot of lately. So you can set how bright you want your background to be, maybe somewhere around 11, 12, something like that. Add to taste. And then aggressiveness, I find 0.7 and 0.4 for aggressiveness and dynamic range compression to be just fine. And if you want to see what it's going to look like, click the real-time preview. And it should look something like this after stretch. Now, this is not exactly what it's going to look like. There's some compression artifact going on in the preview. If the coloration and the brightness is what you're going for, go ahead and click apply. and it's halfway done. And it's done. Okay. Now if I reset my stretch, it doesn't go all black. So this is stretched now. And you can see the generalized hyperbolic stretch now shows a curve. Before, if I undo, you have to go way down into the bottom, very bottom of the histogram to see all the data. But once I stretch it, I have moved that data up into about that 10% brightness range, right? The peak here is not the galaxy. The peak here, this is the number of pixels that are that bright is way more here than the number of pixels that are this bright over here. So that peak represents all this very dark black background. Most of the pixels in this image are black. And so most of the images in the pixel are right around this 10%. Right, I can make it. Oh well, you know, don't you want your black pixels to look black? I can do that, and it's gonna start looking kind of fake, right? That looks a little artificially dark. So you want to have a little bit of color in your background there. And again, adjust to taste. I'm not going to go into the details on generalized hyperbolic stretch again, for sake of time and for sake of other people such as Molly, who already have a much better grasp and finite art to how to use that thing. Okay, so now we've got our stretched image. Now we have an image that we can be proud of. And there are plenty of other things we can do, such as game. And I think we are at the hour at this point. And so I will continue going if you would like. And I thank you all for coming and listening to this discussion. And I will just show you one more thing real quick. Yeah, go ahead.
You know, if you have a lot more to present, we can have you back if you just want to cover one or two more things and just go for it.
Yeah, sure. Let me just do one more thing here real quick.
Okay.
So I just ran through game and I created an ellipse, if you saw that. And then I said, go ahead and create it. This is a gradient. So I'm going to take this and drop it on top of here. And that turns on what's called a mask. So where it's red, it's protected. And so I can show the mask and not show the mask. Like I said earlier, there's some expectation that you're somewhat familiar with this. You can also press the inverse button, which is that black-white thing. And so now we're going to protect the galaxy and affect the background. So if I want to mess with the background, I can do that. If I want to mess with the galaxy, I can do that. And I can go in, hide the mask, but it's still applied because it's orange. And I can go in and use something called curves. And I can say, hey, I want to change the brightness values of things like this, right? And I can get much more finite control of what the image is going to look like by using curves and stretching different brightnesses. And you can start to really get a lot of that coloration detail into the images by applying masks. And there are a whole lot of other tools like color mask that we don't have the time to talk about, but I can pull out specific colors and then set a whole nother set of masks just on a specific color. And with that, so yeah, we can, I'm all right to do a second session if you'd like. But at the end of the day, you know, the image might look, you know, oh, something like that is one version of it that I came up with. There's another version I just came up with. And every time I process, it comes out slightly different. So there you go. There's some basic fundamental processing steps of PixInsight and how to use the interface and what the different tools use. There are also one other one called Star Exterminator. You can go in and take out the stars. We don't have time to cover through all that, but that can be a very powerful thing to separate the stars out of the image and mess with the image without the stars and then add the stars back in. So RC Astro also has an AI tool for that. There's also StarNet, which is free, which apparently I haven't downloaded again. Okay, so with that, that's all I've got. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Molly. feel free to reach out to me on any comments from this video with any questions, and I will post the icon file for all this.
He said he wants the Word doc.
Oh, you want the Word doc? Yeah, I guess I do the Word doc. That's easy. Yeah. I might need to update that before I send it to you. There are some old processes in here that I don't use anymore for like stretching, right? But yeah, absolutely. More than happy to do it.
And you can stop sharing if you want.
Great.
We're back. Thanks very much. You didn't run long at all. It usually runs, an hour and 10 minutes. A couple of comments. I think you'd have a real arm wrestling contest one way or another about drizzling.
Yeah.
Whether you drizzle only when you're undersampled, and of course when you dither, and whether you actually are getting more resolution when you're not undersampled. And I've been on both sides of that argument. I kind of feel strongly both ways, really.
It's like anything else that's for every complex and dynamic problem, there is a clear, simple, and wrong answer.
I'm listening for an answer there.
It depends.
It depends. And I assume that you're bin 1 on all your captures.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
It's one-shot color.
Yeah, it's one-shot color. So I'm
one-shot
still
color.
binning, yes.
That's right. Those of us that don't do OSC, always think about it.
Yeah, I have 2 other rigs that are mono, and I also do single binning in the mono rigs.
And the other thing is WBPP will plate solve and embed the coordinates in that. So normally when you run, that's one of the last steps, is to do the plate solve and normalization. And I see
it takes a lot longer to do that because you're doing it I think you're doing that for every single image in the stack versus just doing it once after the stack is.
Yeah, because we're not stacking in weighted batch preprocessor.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're stacking in weighted batch preprocessor, then it will do the plate solve and embed the coordinates.
Yes, you can do it that way. I wanted to show if you want to be a little more deliberate, we'll go in and measure the subframes, and for anything that you may not realize are technically not good images, like they're slightly elongated, unless you see that in Blink or unless you zoom in and inspect every individual image, weighted batch preprocessor is not going to screen those things out. So doing the weighted subframe selector, you can do that. And you can do the weighted subframe selector before weighted batch preprocessor, but you're not going to get the same results.
And there's a school of thought that aside from the obvious, just throwing everything into the soup will ultimately get you a better result.
And in WBPP, you can do their measurement step interactively now, which is basically the equivalent of subframe selector.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that. Okay.
I saw that. I haven't messed with it yet. You still can't put in a custom weighting formula, I don't think, besides plugging in numbers for full width half max, eccentricity, and one other value.
Yeah.
I'd say if you know it, if you've got reliable numbers, right? If you know that this rig gives back reliable results, and that if my SNR is above a certain threshold, or if my eccentricity is below 0.6 or 0.55, whatever you're used to, and you trust that no matter what, as long as it's below that threshold, then it's going to be a good image. I'm going to be happy with that sub. Then yeah, in that case, I would probably just build a Python script to just do that before I even bring in the images. But for people that aren't going to do the software work, then yeah, if there's a way to do that in weighted batch preprocessor, and you know you've got values that you trust, then yeah, that could definitely save you some time and extra steps on that subframe selector, because you've got to do that for each color channel. If you're doing mono subframe selector, it can take 20 minutes, half hour.
Yeah, if you've got numbers that you know for your FWHM and eccentricity, you can plug those in, but you can also run it in an interactive mode where it shows you what the graphs are for those things, and you can then choose as it goes for what you want your thresholds to be.
Can
I
you
look
look at
forward to seeing
images?
your TEDx talk about that, Linda.
I'm sorry. You both said something at the same time and I didn't catch either.
Can you actually look at your images in the interactive mode?
I don't remember.
It's like when I use Subframe Selector, I'll go through and decide like, okay, I know I usually like to cut off at a full width half max of this, but that's missing a lot of frames. So let me go see what I'm willing to tolerate. And
Yeah.
so I go look at the actual images.
I think you can, but I don't actually remember.
And you know, if you run out of YouTube videos, you can just sit there and stare at WBPP and watch it run for an hour. It's kind of entertaining.
Like watching paint dry.
Oh, look at that. Look what it's done.
Spending 20 minutes on measurements. I love it.
It's only a matter of time till someone posts that video on YouTube.
Of what? Just watching weighted batch preprocessing?
Yeah, just watching my batch.
It's like
Like
it's like
the
those
6-hour Yule log video on YouTube.
yeah.
Is that the Astro imaging equivalent to ASMR?
It's pulled up
Yeah,
every
play
Christmas
some
morning.
like
Oh,
music in the
I mean,
background.
is this like, I have to look that up. Anyway, we digress. Dan, thanks very much. Very informative. No matter how experienced we think we are, there is always something to learn. And I made a couple of notes from your presentation, which I will incorporate next time I process something. So with that note, are we all set? No other questions we missed?
Nope, we're good. We're good out there.
So everyone out there, thanks for hanging in there with us. Thanks, Dan, for your presentation. And we'll say goodnight and see you a couple weeks. All right.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Bye, everybody.